Hi, everyone, and welcome to the LSP Method Podcast, where we talk about all things Lego Serious Play. So, I'm your host, Michael Fern, and today I've got another wonderful guest. This is David Newman. Hi, David. How you going?
Hi, Michael. Great to be with you again.
Yeah, cool. So, when did we meet? Maybe, well, I don't know, a couple of years ago now. So, I know a little bit more about David than some of my other guests. So, I'll take you through a little background, and then he can actually sort of fill in the gaps and obviously take it a bit further. But so, David is from New Zealand. He lives in Canada and also in Vietnam, and he's been in and out of Southeast Asia, Hong Kong, and Vietnam. He's an academic, so he's in the education field, and I'll let him fill in a bit about his work around creativity and things like that. But in terms of Lego Series Play, we met, a few years ago, and we even sort of started collaborating. We did some stuff in Vietnam, so it's been fun working with David over the last few years. But maybe I'll throw it over to you, David. Like, tell us who you are, what you do with Lego Series Play, and I even got you to do a builds to sort of add into
Yes,
the mix.
indeed. Yes, so yeah, welcome to all the listeners, what viewers, I should say.
Both.
It's a podcast, but it's
It's a
also
video podcast. It's sort of
video as
everything.
well. Yes, I'm David Newman. Um, I label myself as a creativity alchemist. And so part of what I've been doing the last few years is finding ways to help people to unleash their creativity, or as I've more recently reframed it, their creative intelligence.
Mm.
Because often people, when you say creativity, they think expressive creativity and artwork and stuff. When we're all creative and we're creative in different ways. So I
Mm.
talk about creative intelligence more now, because that's something that is more acceptable in organizations, and it
Mm.
sounds a little bit more important and serious and something that we should all be doing.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, I'm a creativity alchemist,
Mm.
helping to unleash people's creative intelligence.
Nice.
As Michael said, I'm based in Canada, originally from New Zealand, but I split my time between Canada and Vietnam. So this year, probably by the end of the year, I would have spent about 5 months, between 4 or 5 months in Vietnam.
Mm.
So no, if it's nearly half the year that
Yeah,
I've been,
yeah.
and certainly, more recently, I've been, as well as being an academic, I've, on my creativity side of the business, I've started to train facilitators
Mm.
in Lego Serious Play
Mm.
facilitation methods.
Yeah, yeah. Cool, fantastic. Now, did you have a build as well that tells, and I
I
think it was
have
a
a
tower?
build, yes,
Yeah,
and
show us. I want to have a look.
normally when we do builds, we say 2 minutes. I kept on going and going. It
You,
was more
you
than two
cheated.
minutes, and so I cheated. So I'm going to hold it up here, but when I hold it up, I actually don't have a third hand to talk about it. So what I'm going to try and do is I'm going to move it around. And so it started off, you'll see here, and I'm sort of tapping with my finger, these transparent blocks with a turtle, and you see the back end of a turtle, but I'll turn this around. Okay, so you can see the turtle that is now facing the camera, and or tortoise. So this is really a foundation of transparency. I'm someone who's very open and transparent. And in Vietnamese culture, the turtle, the tortoise, signifies wisdom and knowledge and learning. Doesn't mean I'm slow, but sometimes I am. But no, it's actually signifying that wisdom. And so this is really the base in the education. So I'm operating from the space of knowledge and education. And there's this ladder going up again. So this is, sorry, I'm hiding it with my hand. Let me try a slightly different way of doing this, which may or may not work. Um, so there's this ladder going up over here, and this is this continual growth. And up above at the top, I'll try and see if we can face the camera. It won't really work. But so looking away from the camera, you've got me. I've sort of done grey here because I guess there is a bit of grey there somewhere. And with my wife, because this is something that we're embarking on together. And I've got these wings, and there's these, you can't really see it, these engines, because I do a lot of flying. I'm flying between Canada and uh, Vietnam, and there's possibility of doing some other countries next year. And so that's why we've got the wings and the flying. And I have these spiky bushes, and I often use the bushes in terms of ideas and creativity. And there's actually also, if you look down, you see this orange showing up in different parts of the build. And I've got orange again because orange is a color that's often associated with creativity. So we're sort of on this journey together. We're sort of growing. We've got all these ideas, and then there's all these doors in front of us and possibilities. And we're constantly, we're exploring different possibilities. With there's another ladder that continues in the growth path, and this fear that has again the idea being that there is all this magic, these things that we have yet to emerge and will continue on that growth path. I was going to put some pieces of Lego, other Lego bits on here to show, the Lego Serious Play Journey, but we haven't done that. But there's also these that are these flexible things that we're able to connect to other areas as well, because it doesn't just no Lego Serious Play is just one thing that we do. My wife is senior executive, so Lanan is a senior executive in a couple of companies in Vietnam at the moment. She's also a master trainer and a coach, and there are a lot of things that this overlaps with. And we're actually moving towards offering bilingual training for Lego Serious Play in Vietnam, and that's probably going to emerge maybe at the end of this year, where we'll actually start delivering in both languages. So that's sort of my scaffold. We're still work in process. It's now falling apart, but these things happen when you're hiring.
It always tends to happen as we get to the end of explaining it or building. There's always
Yeah,
bits and pieces that fall off. The great thing with Lego, as you know, David, is you can rebuild it. You can put
yeah.
it back together. Well,
So
thank
so
you.
that was the tower that sort of grew.
Yeah, yeah, it did. I love it. I love how expansive it was. And a couple of things to pick up on there. You mentioned sort of early on about sort of starting to train people in Lego Series Play, and obviously you're one of these partners that are part of the LSP Method Partner Program, and off doing that. How have you found that getting out and sort of diving into the method in a different way? You use it, which we'll get to in education and other things, but how have you
Yeah.
found it in training people in it?
Yep. So there was a shift from using it in the classroom to I mean, a bit of a shift because I've actually been doing some of the training still in classrooms,
Yeah.
uh, and with academics and the
Mm,
latest. But yeah, it's been good to be the method and the magic that can happen. So
mm,
no, at its root, this is actually a very simple method,
mm.
but you have to do things right to really unlock that power.
Yeah.
So to be able to be sharing this with others, and that's part of why I started doing this with Michael was, hey, this is powerful. Everyone should be doing this. So yeah, and really provided a pathway from the become a partner and part of the mission to introduce it and to other people so they can actually get the impact and enjoy the magic that comes from doing this.
Yeah, yeah, cool. And you mentioned it is sort of just one thing amongst many. You called yourself a creativity alchemist, and obviously Lego Series Play as sort of one tool amongst that, and you're, using it in the education space, which we'll get to soon. What are some of the other things that you do around your, I guess, your alchemy with creativity? Like, obviously you
Um,
teach, but are there other tools, other programs that you do?
yeah, yeah. So there are things like applied improv,
Mm,
which I've been using in the teaching and on the creativity. I can run, and I have run stuff that's more focused in terms of creative problem solving,
mm,
ideation.
mm,
It's really, a lot of organizations talk about innovation and how they were innovative or they need innovation.
mm.
But you don't have innovation without creativity. Creativity is the engine that powers innovation.
Yeah.
And so I've really been developing my expertise in this area over a number of years. Uh, Now at UBC, I've been teaching a first year academic research and writing course, but I'd reframe it. I'd say to the students, don't look at it as a required course in writing.
Mm,
You're going to learn about creativity,
mm,
and you're going to learn how that creative problem solving process works and
mm,
different tools. And along the way, you'll learn this other stuff about research and writing as well.
mm.
But you frame it.
Yeah.
And so so no, I've talked about the teaching. I'm a coach. I am accredited both team coach and individual coach.
Yeah.
So the coaching comes in there as
Mm.
well. And I mean, Lego Serious Play works really well with coaching,
Yeah, yeah,
as
definitely. I think it's nice to,
what Paul's doing.
yeah, yeah. Well, I guess that's the thing. It's like the reason I ask about some of those other tools is because, Lego Serious Play is just another one of those tools, but it combines with a lot of those tools, which I think a lot of those tools
Yeah,
sometimes they don't necessarily combine, like really lock in together. Like you can use this tool, you can use that approach, you can do that. And I guess one of the things I love about Lego Series Play is it sort of enhances your toolkit that you already have. So that was why I asked, because I know you do a lot of different things. Let's shift to Lego Series Play and how you use it. So obviously, more in the education space, you've been using it over the last few years. So tell us what a typical session might look like, or a topic, or how you're bringing it in a classroom, and maybe how it's different in the education space than the corporate space.
yeah. So in the corporate space, when you're doing bringing it in, often it's a longer session. You
Mm,
might have 2 hours, you might have 3 hours.
mm,
You may be bringing some other tools in as well. It has a specific purpose where you've got a problem that you may be exploring or a team building or something like that.
mm,
How I've been using it in education has been to both help students reflect and understand and come to have another way to think about concepts and how
mm,
to construct, in terms of writing, how do you actually develop a thesis argument
mm.
and to construct a thesis argument now out of Lego. And
Yeah.
then I had them mapping out how they um, sort of the pathway in terms of their research paper.
Mm,
And so actually using it as three-dimensional thinking.
yeah. Cool.
I've been using this with graduate students as well. So this is part of my teaching in Vietnam.
Mm,
Solvay Business School, teaching a course in creativity there. I've had them all these students here are, yeah, they're working professionals.
mm,
They often have supervisory positions, the managers, even CEOs or
mm,
managing directors of their company. And so what I had them do is do a creative audit
mm,
of their organization. We're in teams of three, so not everyone, we don't do everyone's organization,
mm,
but it's one of the organizations. And they use the Lego in terms of identifying in the different parts of the framework
mm,
that I teach them around the organizational creative intelligence.
mm.
And in terms of working where the weaknesses are and what can be uh, improved things they can do.
Yeah.
And they do a presentation at the end. So it's used both as a thinking tool
Mm,
again, but I've also had students, come within the final presentation and they've used the Lego. They've
mm.
used Lego images in terms of presenting their results and the ideas, not what else can be done.
Yeah.
So it's a tool in the teaching. Now, do I use this all the time? No,
Yeah.
no, I don't. And this isn't something that you do want to use all the time.
Mm,
It's no 3 or 4 times over the process of the semester. It's to help the thinking process, conceptualization,
mm.
understanding different concepts, and no, do it enough that the students are saying, "Can we have some more of the Lego serious play?"
Yeah.
Where they wanted, but not so much that, oh no, not this again.
Yeah.
So you bring it in, but it's a way of, one of the wonderful things about using this in the classroom is it fully engages the students.
Mm.
So
Which
instead
for
of having
students,
class activity,
yeah.
you know, I've really tried to move away from that lecture-based teaching, that older version. No, I position myself as a learning facilitator at the
Mm,
beginning of the class. There is still some lecture bits coming in, but as much as possible, I try to have them doing things
mm,
during the class.
yeah.
And so doing something like with Lego Serious Play, you shift people, just having to listen to that guy at the front talking again,
Mm,
to they are building, they are talking with each other, they are discovering and getting insights. And one of the things I get from the students is that, they come and think, oh, we're going to play with Lego.
mm,
They shift to actually, I'm getting insights. And I talk about them using Lego in a playful way,
mm,
learning in a playful way, but it
mm,
isn't playing with Lego. They're
yeah.
actually working. And but they get to see why they do this. And there's a whole lot of science behind this in terms of how our fingers and hands are connected to our brain. And
Mm,
we're able to access parts of our brain that if we're just having a discussion or taking notes, that we aren't accessing
mm,
as much of our brain.
yeah.
But now they discover that the insights that actually emerge through the building.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, thanks for taking us through that. I've found in the education space, there's more and more I've found over, particularly since the pandemic, there's just more and more people from the education space wanting to come and learn Lego Serious Play for all the reasons that you said around teaching and, that it brings in a different method, a different modality, engagement, all the things we know and love about the method. Have you ever thought about doing it with other departments or colleagues or at the actual teaching level? The reason I say that is because in the corporate realm, we have like a couple of use cases for it where it's like it's teams, there's lots of things you can do, but it's I almost think in education, there's even more things we can do. Like there's obviously the teaching side of it
Oh, yeah.
and the learning side of it. And then there's the how do you work with colleagues and how do you work across the university? Have you ever thought about doing it with colleagues as well and sort of, I guess, at an
Absolutely. In fact,
organizational
I've got
level?
a proposal. Yeah, I've got a proposal I need to finish
Yeah.
where, in UBC and the school we're in, we've got these different programs and they
Mm,
come together
mm,
under the school. And but this was 3 or 4 years ago, 5 years ago. But it's not a coherent unit.
mm,
It's like this merger situation. And I'm going, wow, this is actually a great
mm,
um, place where we could be using the Lego to really work through the identities of the different programs now and how they can come up with a joint of a one identity where they still have their own individual identities, but they're also part of a whole rather than just two separate programs,
yeah.
this sort of school umbrella,
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
way of putting them together. So there is certainly, I've been thinking about seeing if there's the appetite
Yeah.
to do. Um, I think there's a lot of different uses. So
Mm,
someone who I trained in Vietnam back in August, he's a curriculum developer.
mm,
And so part of his work is developing the curriculum, and he can, he's now going to see how can he use this in
yeah.
terms of mapping out the curriculum. So it's not in the classroom.
Yeah.
It's a team building. There is, I think there's a big area in terms of career guidance
Yeah.
and working with students individually in terms of, what is it you do want to be doing in 5 years' time?
Yeah.
Building that. And that process where you're tapping into parts of your brain that may be less conscious, and
Mm,
actually in the building, and some of those ideas start to emerge. It really it provides a really good vehicle for exploring, possible careers or
yeah.
possible programs. If you go look at a secondary school, what degrees am I going to, should I be applying
Yeah.
for?
Yeah. My career, where
Oh,
am I
you
going?
look at 16, 17-year-old, many of them really don't have that much of a clue.
Mm,
And, maybe their parents are saying, oh, you should do business because you can make lots of money.
mm,
Not necessarily true. Um, but to be able to even work, in the secondary, in terms of helping them map out possible further education, higher education paths.
Mm.
Lots of possibilities.
Yeah. It just struck me, David, as
Yeah,
you're talking in the education sphere. So, a lot of what you're talking about, like there's say career guidance, there's teaching, there's the organizational level where you're talking with colleagues and between, bringing programs together, like change programs. It just struck me that maybe one of the challenges in education for people like yourself and other people who are bringing in Lego Serious Play is that, you have these spheres that you have control over. Like, in the classroom, you have control over the teaching methods that you do. But for someone like yourself to come to a dean or a sort of higher up and say, look, I want to do some effectively what is organizational development work, like or career guidance in, sort of junior schools. It's very much breaking out of just that role. And so I was just as you were talking, I was thinking, oh, I wonder if that's one of the challenges. It's like other people seeing you as the academic that just teaches rather than the person who can help the whole organization or can help bring these things together. It's like you're expanding your toolkit to expand the impact you can have at organizational or even individual level. So
absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, it can be used in all kinds of things. It can be used by teachers in terms of figuring out, thinking through how they're going to plan their classes over
Mm,
here.
map
Or
it out.
research, universities, in terms of figuring out the research program.
Mm,
It's get used quite a lot with doctoral students in different universities in
mm,
terms of planning, again, their research path, how they're going to progress or
yeah.
working through where they're at in terms of the research for their dissertation.
Yeah.
So
Um,
again, a coaching type approach. But
yeah.
there are so few academics who are actually certified or understand how to do it.
Yeah.
Now, my train, so last weekend I had ran a training here in Vancouver,
Mm,
and the core of it were three academics from a private business school
mm,
who certainly one of them has been using the Lego for a couple of years, but hasn't got trained and certified.
yeah.
In fact, he was the one he's wrote to me and said, can you do this in Vancouver for us?"
Yeah.
And he is really what he is working on, and they've already, as an institution, they've bought a lot of Lego to use in classes.
Mm,
And we've got the core idea has been able to spread it through the whole program.
mm,
So as they work with the first year students, they do it both at undergraduate and graduate level. Begin they start to get used to using Lego, but using it right through the whole program.
mm,
And they had a external review. They had a reviewers in recently, and one of the reviewers was familiar with Lego Serious Play. He
mm.
said, "I've never heard of an institution actually institutionalizing
Yeah.
Lego Serious Play way." But
Yeah.
this is one of the things he's actually advocating and trying to work on is to actually get this used across the whole institution. What I'm seeing on the education system now, and I've made a proposal to my university
Mm,
to say, look, there's some other things we need to be doing. We are missing that ladder in many programs. No, this is more particularly in the arts, that bridges the old, traditional disciplines
mm.
with what people need now, the tools that they need now
Yeah.
upon graduation. And I'm not necessarily, these aren't necessarily job specific tools, but
Mm,
it's things like creative thinking,
mm.
it's like facilitation skills, it's other things that sort of enable students to be able to take that knowledge that they have and be able to apply it then to basically help society and to put it to use.
Yeah.
So if you're doing, I mean, people often say, what use is gender studies as a major? Well, it
Mm,
can be very useful in
mm.
terms of the the workplace and figuring out some of the inequalities
Mhm.
that are happening. But do the students who are doing, might be majoring or doing courses in gender studies and have a particular interest in that, do they have the other skills or tools to be able to then put that to real use?
Yeah.
Or
Okay.
a degree in history, for instance.
Yeah.
But history, there's so much value in history and understanding the past, but also the frameworks of thinking and understanding and the big picture.
Mm.
But do they then have the skills to make use of that, to
Yeah.
build on that core knowledge? So that those are the silos and the stuff that I'm showing on top of the elephant,
Yeah.
to then have the tools as they emerge into the workplace. And
Yeah.
so I think that's one of the things that, this isn't true of all institutions, probably. It's something I've seen in many institutions where there is this gap
Mm.
between the traditional subjects, and I'm
Mm.
not saying get rid of those. There are some universities that are basically getting rid of those subjects and
Yeah.
languages, history, and so on. No, those are important. They have real value,
Yeah.
but there has been difficulty bridging that. How do you take the value to something that is real and applicable in our current society, which is changing so much?
Yeah. Yeah, it is. Well put. And it's interesting. I guess it's that transferable skills or that finding the value. It's like the real world value in the real skills that you're learning. But it's what you're saying is what we're not talking about is that gap. It's that ladder. It's the bridging
There are
between.
more skills. There are more skills that I think could be incorporated, and this is where my interest in creative intelligence and
Yeah.
facilitation, um, strategic foresight, knows thinking.
Yeah.
There are not very many programs that are actually teaching students how to imagine different futures, how to actually do map out different scenarios, and then work out what do we need to be able to do to reach particular scenarios, or what do we need to have no preparations we need to make for some of these other possible scenarios.
Yeah.
This is about building resilience in a very rapidly changing world, and we
Yeah.
don't see that as much as there really should be in
Yeah.
education.
Yeah, it's interesting. I reflect back many, many years to when I was at university. It's getting up to 25 years now. But it's like one of my majors was in philosophy. And,
Mhm.
you know, even back then it was like, well, because my brother did like a PhD in philosophy, and the retort was always, well, what's that going to get you? Like, where's the job and where's the transferable skills? But I look back on that time using, studying philosophy as the underpinning of so many things that I've learned afterwards. It's I guess it's that sort of, particularly in the US, I talk about a liberal arts education. It's like a solid foundation to perhaps build things on. Yeah, just it's that balance between, job ready skills, things that are just for knowledge, that bit in between. And yeah, I don't know, just having kids growing up now, I would really encourage them to have that base foundation of critical thinking skills, creativity, like you said. Like it's the underpinning of so much else that will go on in their lives that
Yeah.
yeah. Hey, I wanted to shift gears a little bit. You talked a little bit about Vietnam and how you've been sort of in and out of
Yep.
Southeast Asia for many years. So how have you found, let's bring it to Lego Series Play. You've been training a bit there, certifying people in Vietnam. How have you found sort of different cultures and different approaches to authority, different approaches to engagement, different approaches to openness and things like that? How have you found that between, obviously, your background, say in somewhere like New Zealand, a bit of work in Canada, Vietnam? What have you seen? Like, what are the insights that have popped out sort of culturally around using Lego Serious Play? Is there any difference, or has the method
I
worked the same?
I haven't really seen any real difference.
Yeah, interesting.
I mean, many of the people who I have been training in Vietnam, though, are because this is very expensive. It's even though the cost of a training we've been offering in Vietnam is lower than most of the training globally.
Yeah.
It was really a very small percentage of people in Vietnam can afford it.
Yeah.
And so what we have really had coming in is really that top end, who
Mm,
in most cases have had some international education or they are expats in Vietnam.
mm.
And so I haven't seen any real difference at that level. If anything, I think it was my no, but I just say there hasn't really been any difference.
Yeah. One thing I can think
I
of,
think they can be used
yeah. One thing I was just thinking
anyway.
of when I was over there with you, we had that one workshop together, the client workshop, where it was a Swiss company, in Vietnam. So in the room we had like 10 people, and there was, Swiss people, there was Vietnamese people, and we split up into two tables. And a couple of my reflections from that, like, first of all, I love the one table where we had people speaking Vietnamese, speaking English, and also one of the gentlemen there only spoke German. So it was like this beautiful mix of translating, and the Lego was, sort of the connector between it all.
Common
Um,
language.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And I think the thing that struck me, I mean, that's really probably that's the only sort of client workshop that I've done. Oh, actually, there was another one. There was another client workshop I did in Vietnam with
Yeah,
you.
we did the pizza 4 piece.
Yeah, but I think with both of those, like, what I learned is that it is a universal tool and language. Like, you set it up, you describe around metaphor, and the way we set up it makes people more open. And like, some of the stuff that came out, I felt like the people were there were very open, they were very sharing, much like I would see in Australia, you would see in Canada, we would see in Europe. And so, yeah, just my reflection was it just works everywhere. I mean, I still, I still need to I've done some client work in Malaysia and obviously in Europe, but I still need to get around to more regions of the world. But yeah, that's my reflection, is that the method just works everywhere. Thoughts on that?
One thing I did learn
Yeah.
is that metaphors are different, can be different in different cultures. So
Yeah.
there was a workshop that's, but this was more recent. This was one of the August workshops, and someone said, so I've got dinosaurs in my kit,
Mm.
and they said, I'm a dinosaur. And I've had to say, tell me more about that.
Yeah.
And they said, well, big and dominant and important. And so in Vietnam, that metaphor of a dinosaur being someone old and out of date and
Yeah,
so
yeah,
on,
like a Western view of it.
that wasn't being used at all. It was more about dinosaurs are big, impressive beasts,
Mm.
and they're important, and didn't have that meaning that we often attach in the West.
Yeah, it's a little bit like
And,
that tortoise
and
that you
that
bring.
really been,
Yeah, it's a bit like that
yeah,
tortoise you
I know
brought
what
in
you're talking
early. Like, you know, I guess what it lends to is what is the sort of more prevalent metaphor for that animal in that culture. So, in more Western, a turtle would be sort of slower, or could be slower, seen as slower. Whereas you were saying, in Vietnam, it's about wise, it's about knowledge, like it has a real place. And so actually funny. I'm about to show some of my nerdy roots. Back when I was growing up, I liked the TV show Star Trek, and so they had one where it was they met another culture that only spoke in metaphor, and that was their language is just all the different metaphors, but the people that were meeting them from Star Trek were like they couldn't understand the language. They heard the metaphor, but it was so context and this in this case species dependent. But and so
about.
I guess within a Lego Series Play workshop, say within Vietnam with only Vietnamese people, like there's an understanding of those cultural metaphors, and they would understand what some of those things meant. Same as in Australia, same as Europe, as in, like, it's I guess it's only when it's sort of cross-cultural. So for instance, that one where we had people from Switzerland and Germany, and where you might need to unpack some of those metaphors. But how much easier is it to do that in like a physical, visual 3D space where you can hold that up and still use the metaphor, but say, no, no, I mean it more like this. And then people go, oh, okay, So yeah, just that reflection it's always context dependent from the culture you're
Yeah,
in. And the only time you need to be really not careful, but take more time to unpack it is cross-cultural work, where the metaphors might be slightly different. Love it. That's so cool. Anything else around? I mean, obviously, we've just started doing some work in Vietnam, and there's more and more facilitators there. And I was actually honestly surprised when I learned how many people live in Vietnam, and the size of the country, like the length of it, and I guess just in general Southeast Asia and the opportunities there. We know there's a growing community in Singapore, but places like Malaysia and Thailand, and there's a real appetite
It was
for
not a
new
small
tools.
in both places.
Yeah,
Yeah. I mean,
yeah,
in fact, I know we haven't talked about the possible Hoi An
mm,
event next year, but he was from both Malaysia and Thailand
yeah,
for that. And so when the Southeast Asia region, there's over 600. Now, this is bigger than North America.
yeah,
There's a lot of people, and we're really just starting to scrape the surface. Singapore, very active, quite a large, they've got a lot of Lego Serious Play facilitators for the population size.
yeah,
When you look at the rest of Southeast Asia, there's just so much potential for this to
yeah,
be
yeah.
produced.
Now we had one third build, except this time you got a photo of it. You were telling me that
So
you
I'm going to do a photo. I'm going to share a
yeah.
photo. Yeah, and but this is so just some context. I'm working on a book with a friend, colleague of mine
Mm.
on team creativity in a complex world,
Yeah, cool.
and we're still in the early stages. But earlier they were talking about having actually a standard structure for the chapters.
Mm,
And my book is going to be one of actually probably possibly a bigger project.
mm.
And I said, let's build, what we're thinking about. Let's actually build it. And so what I'm now bringing up on screen is that was our build. This is what we
Ah,
came out with, and just in terms of the different parts. And so we started off with the individual build.
yeah.
And so parts have actually got the sticky notes, the post-it
Mm,
notes. And then Patrick did the build down in the lower center,
mm.
where he had just the different parts. But he was talking about how all this came together.
Yeah.
And then we just talked through what we had built and how this then is reflected in terms of the chapter format and structure. And in the
Mm,
process of this, we're going, oh, now we can see what we're missing. We
yeah.
need to also include, and this is where some of the other post-it notes have this checklist of actions. So, at the end of each chapter, we're actually now going to have checklists. But this emerged from us doing these builds, the individual builds, and sharing the stories. We didn't actually do a combined build on this,
Yeah.
but it really was helping us to think. There's
Mm.
three-dimensional thinking, and in the process of that, we are able to then identify some things that we going, oh, this is missing.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. What I love about this photo and what you've shown here is, it starts to get into other techniques within Lego Serious Play, like around a landscape, like laying things out. And I often think it's more of an ecosystem thing. You get it down, you can see, what you've got, what you haven't got. And I often say it's hard for any one person, and definitely when there's two people or a team, to hold it all in your head and navigate the space of ideas. So this is a great example of it, like a mini example with just two people, where you put those things down that you feel are important, and then you can see, what have we got, where are the gaps, what's missing, what do we need to focus on. And yeah, I just think uh, like a technique like this, where it's sort of like a mind mapping, but it's like on steroids. It's like an advanced version of it. It just helps to bring in the stuff you need when you need it, what's missing. Yeah. Thanks for sharing this. Like, we've had on the podcast mostly just individual builds, but to see these individual builds placed together in some sort of landscape, really, it hints at what we know of Lego Series Play, that there's a lot more to it as well.
Yeah, yeah. And this is, a pair build. And this is
Yeah.
something I know has started to emerge in discussions about, working as a pair build. And it's really a form of team or group build. But in
Mm.
education, this actually has a lot of application.
Mm.
There hasn't been a lot written about this. So I've actually last weekend we actually had spent some time on pair builds and talking about pair builds as part of it.
Yeah.
part of the training. But I think it's really like a mini group build. There are some differences to a group
Yeah.
build, I found. Whereas in
Yeah.
a group build, you're more typically what are the parts from the individual build you can bring into the group build. With the
Yeah.
pair build, it's more a case of if we bring these together, what doesn't work together and how do we have duplicated and what do we leave out rather than what
Yeah.
do we bring in.
It's almost like a paired hybrid of a shared and landscape, as in
Yeah,
like it's you're doing it in pairs, but some of it you're sort of bringing in, maybe even combining, but some of it's more landscapey where you've still got
yeah,
them, some of it's left out.
yeah.
Yeah, interesting. Oh, nice.
This
Thank you
one
for
is
sharing it.
actually this is a landscape rather than a shared build
Yeah,
that
yeah.
Patrick and I did. But and others no, so in my teaching, they were doing a shared build, but
Mm,
they were bringing their individual parts together into a shared
yeah,
model. Coming to that shared understanding, common understanding. And to give a little bit of
yeah,
context around it, I had my students writing a research paper in pairs. And so this is at the conceptualization of what is at the core of their paper. They
yeah,
initially do individual, but it helps in that communication and understanding of how are we going to do this together? What is
yeah.
our shared vision for the
Love that.
paper?
Yeah, nice. All right. Fantastic. Well, as we sort of get towards the end of the podcast, I'll get you to stop sharing the screen, David, and we'll uh,
Yes,
we'll we'll
yes,
get
we'll drop
chatting.
that off.
Couple last things. The future for you, for Lego Series Play, your other tools. What are you excited about sort of coming up in the next few years for you?
Well, I haven't really looked too far out. I mean, I've got no this year I've got at least one more training here in Vancouver
Mm,
and multiple trainings in Vietnam. And
yeah,
what I'm excited about is we're going to be moving into bilingual and
yeah,
actually
love that.
testing that out. I've I think there's lots of possibilities in terms of developing specific applications.
Yeah,
So things like change management or doing things that are very much focused on particular areas because this is a methodology that can be used in so many different areas.
mm,
And so starting to look at some of those individual areas and building up resources for those areas.
mm,
Uh, Next year, again, there'll be more work in Vietnam. I anticipate that we'll be moving towards having Vietnamese language trainers or facilitators in Vietnam. So I can
great.
see that happening. And when you've got a market of 100 million people in
Mm,
one country, just the potential for that.
yeah,
I've done a workshop at Lego in Vietnam,
mm,
and just in terms of really having some of those resources available for the local market. So
yeah,
that's certainly one thing. Bringing it in, combining it with my other creative intelligence work, I want to be able to get to a point where, in no, at a university, at an institutional level, we're actually training and certifying students to be
yeah,
facilitators, so that
mm,
when they leave and go into organizations, they've already got that.
yeah,
That they've been using it in terms of their studies in their different classes, and they're going into organizations and saying, "Hey, I've got another tool that could be really useful here." And
yeah.
so
Love
it
that.
moves the Lego Series Play from really being a niche, specialized, maybe one or two people in the learning and development
Mm,
team might have this to this can be everyone can be
yeah,
accessed.
love
And
it.
it's going to undercut the business model of a lot of many of the established earlier training groups. If
Yeah,
you've got students who are getting certified in much wider group, but I think it's what I see happening with the whole Lego Series Play. It's evolving,
yeah,
and the role of these training groups will be much more in the advanced levels, the systems level design
yeah,
and really looking at really some of the more in-depth uses as at
yeah.
the lower end, it becomes widespread. Now,
Mm,
I'd like to see schools, but this has been part of my vision with training a small core within a school. So there's three, four, five who are certified as Lego Series Play facilitators, but they're able to train their peers so that
Mm.
they're able to use it in the classroom. And it's not that they are certifying them, but it's they're giving them the skills and the tools that they're able to start using it. I
Yeah.
mean, maybe some of them will become certified as well, but it's been able to then just spread, make this, something that is much more a common, normal part of daily, whether it's in the classroom and learning or you're running a meeting and you've got your Lego in the background and you go,
Yeah.
oh, let's put some Lego and let's do a little bit of Lego series play to work through this problem, to
Yeah.
maybe map out this the plan and what is it we're missing, or looking at different scenarios, and that this is a normal tool that people are using.
Yeah. Oh, I love that vision, David, of it being more widespread and used at all different levels and in all different
Yeah.
spaces. Awesome. Hey, so where can people find you? What's the best way to sort of contact you or follow you or get in
Yeah,
touch with you?
so I don't yet have a landing page or website set up. That is in process. We're
Mm.
figuring out what that branding may be, but
Yeah.
possibly LSP Unleashed,
Oh, I
and
like it.
in partnership with LSP Method.
Yeah,
It
no,
also
cool.
connects with my other branding with Deliberate Creativity Unleashed. But
Yeah.
probably the best way to find me at this point is on LinkedIn,
Yeah.
and you'll
I
find it at
definitely follow David on
LinkedIn
LinkedIn. So he's
Creativity Alchemist.
yeah, yeah. Well, it's I love following you on LinkedIn because, you post about the work you do, the Lego Series Play stuff you do, the trainings you do. There's a whole bunch of, and you do some great videos on there as well. So yeah, definitely follow David on LinkedIn. And then I think, in short time there'll be things like landing pages and, other parts and pieces as
The,
well.
the,
So
the other stuff is coming. It's sort of my wife's going to look after, people to do that, look after that, and
yeah, you get up all
we've
that
had those
branding.
discussions. We just need to work on the branding and getting that stuff out. And but I anticipate this year there will be. Certainly, I mentioned the Hoi An retreat next year. And, this is probably going to be watched in 2 or 3 years' time, but certainly for April 2025, Michael and I are looking at having a Lego Serious Play facilitator and trainer retreat in Hoi An, Vietnam.
Mm,
Beautiful, beautiful little city, one of the most beautiful little cities in the world. Uh,
mm,
and so we're beginnings of planning that, but there's
yeah.
going to be a landing page with information as part of that. So we're going to need to get that up in the next probably month or so. So no, with that's going to lead on to the other
Yeah, I love it.
as
Awesome.
well.
Well, thank you, David. Thank you for the chat, and we're definitely going to get you back on the podcast again to talk a little more about your work in with LSP and creativity in educations. So thank you, and for everyone else, keep an eye on the next episode. Plenty more guests, but I've loved this one, David. So thank you for your time.
Yep. Well, thank you, Michael. And no, it was great working with you in Vietnam. We had a couple
Mm.
of weeks um, traveling and working together
Yeah,
there.
it was great.
And we're looking forward to having you come back
Yeah,
to
would
to
love to.
Vietnam
Love to.
next year, and we might look at doing some advanced level training as well for the facilitators who are already there.
Yeah, love it. Thanks, David. Thanks, everyone.
Take care. Thank you, everyone who's coming to watch.